Hey everyone, welcome back to the Play Therapy Circle podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ellison, and I am so glad you are here. Welcome everyone. Confession time. It's Thursday at 4:30. So when I tell you, this is pushing the deadline. It's pushing the deadline, you guys. Pushing the deadline. And I'm just looking at my face for anyone who's watching the videos, and it's been a day. I've had 5 clients, supervisions and clients today, I think. And so it's getting to the end of the day. And so I'm here and I hope you guys are well. I don't know how your week has been treating you. We celebrated in my practice in Kylie Ellison Therapy and Training. We celebrated this week 10 years. A decade of delivering child-centered play therapy services here in Brisbane, in Queensland. So I am so grateful to everyone who has reached out and congratulated us. It's an incredible milestone to reach as a business. We certainly have been through so much over the 10 years and so many challenges along the way. But we are here, we are thriving, we are continuing to remain passionate about child-centered play therapy and our services we offer. And so it's been a wonderful week just celebrating the journey. And you guys would have watched my video last week talking about, and my podcast last week talking about my journey to becoming a child-centered play therapist. So if you haven't checked that out, please do so. And thank you so much to everyone that's been listening and supporting the podcast. We made a pretty major announcement, you guys, this week. It was really exciting. So excited. So we at the Play Therapy Circle are proud to present our first child-centered play therapy conference, our first conference here in Brisbane in October. So I know that we have a lot of international listeners. We are now in 40 countries, including Australia, so 39 other countries apart from my homeland, Australia. So we will definitely post information as we go. So please follow us on our social media, on Instagram, the Play Therapy Circle podcast, and Kylie Ellison Therapy and Training. We will be posting a lot in the coming months about the conference and how to register. And we will also make sure that our international listeners who can't make it to the conference will be able to have access. So stay tuned. But we are super excited. It'll be myself presenting and my clinical supervisor, Dr. Jody Mullen from the US. So both of us together will be presenting in Brisbane in October. So very, very, very exciting. It's an incredible opportunity to bring our child-centered play therapy community together, and we're so excited. So thank you to everyone who's already registered. It's wild. We've already had people signing up, so I can't wait to see our community together. So it's going to be great. So I have here today in reminding myself, because I bounce, as you all know, between topics and conversations. And last week was about my journey as a CCPT practitioner. This week we're getting back into some parent information, parent content. So welcome. I'm also just noticing it's Thursday afternoon. I don't know if that's a thing for anyone, but I work, I see clients and supervisees Monday to Thursdays usually, or if I'm doing training, then Monday to Friday, Monday, Tuesday supervisions and client work, and then Wednesday to Friday training, or Monday to Thursday, which has been this week of clients and supervisees. And this is the end of the day. So technically I have a day off tomorrow. Probably going to do some work, but only minor, because I am determined to have a weekend off and that elusive work-life balance that we're all chasing. So if anyone's got the secret formula, please feel free to reach out. But I'm noticing how tired I am. This is probably not a good idea to be doing a podcast when I look like death. So I apologize for the following podcast. You're welcome. But I do want to, have a conversation, and it is top of mind for lots of conversations I've had this week with supervisees, where there is, that questioning or resistance around play therapy being legitimate, in the child-centered play therapy, being legitimate in terms of parent expectations. So I feel like that's a whole other episode I want to do all on my own. Like I could go off on a tangent right now, but I'm not going to because I have an agenda. I can see it on my computer. So we're going to get through this, you guys. But I think that one of the things that we get a lot, and especially in the beginning, I want to give those who are starting out in the field all of the hope in the world right now that you will find this also peters off in terms of a presenting challenge for you working with parents as you become more confident in child-centered play therapy. It is one of those things that if parents are feeling unsure, and we are early in the profession, and we also are feeling, I guess, a little unsure ourselves in our own practice, in our definition of child-centered play therapy, all of the things, it can kind of be almost a little bit of a perfect storm, which then I guess kind of evolves into parents kind of questioning child-centered play therapy and how it works. So I definitely don't want to say in any way, shape or form that this is anyone's particular issue. I think it's just community-based, and again, I'm going to talk to Brisbane and Queensland, you guys, so obviously different in different parts of the world, but I know that there can often be a skepticism around child-centered play therapy in the fact that we don't talk directly to children. We don't ask them questions, we don't give them strategies, we don't give them ideas, and so that can be questioned a little bit by parents. I want to start off the conversation, I'm going to go off on a tangent, I can already feel it, where I want to emphasize that there's so much psychodynamic work with this as well. I want to emphasize that when you feel or you are presented with these questions from parents around why we don't talk to children in child-centered play therapy, or why are you not talking to my child, I have a couple of reflections immediately. The first one is that it's often that the parent is in crisis, that they are feeling really stuck, they're very challenged, they're at their wits' end, they're exhausted. And so they're coming to you needing a change immediately. And we know in therapy, and especially child-centered play therapy, it's a longitudinal process. It is not, 10 sessions and we're done. So I think that's the first thing when you are doing your initial consultations with parents, really setting the groundwork and the foundation in that initial session to say, this is what to expect in child-centered play therapy. It's not a quick fix. And I think that that's ethically important as well, because we can really potentially weed out parents that are just looking for a quick fix, because we can't promise that. We are in the business and in the work in child-centered play therapy of working at the pace of the child. So we're really clearly articulating that in the initial consultation to help parents to understand exactly what we're doing in the playroom. That can be really difficult as a beginning play therapist. So I just want to normalize those of you who are struggling with that, because psychodynamically what we're talking about here then is potentially that triggering of that imposter syndrome. When we have a parent that comes to us and questions the legitimacy of child-centered play therapy, we know it's evidence-based. There's meta-analyses. We've been working on this since the 40s. Like, there is a long history of effectiveness of this approach, right? Both evidence-based and anecdotal. It's not about the intervention, and it's not about you. And that sounds really harsh to say on a Thursday afternoon. I'm really sorry that came out. But it really is about what is happening for the parent, and taking a minute to really unpack that, calm your nervous system if you get that question, because you're immediately going to feel like you're on the defensive and have to prove your worth, and really notice what's coming up for the parent. And so then reflecting that back, as opposed to trying to overcompensate or really kind of prove your validity when we know it's there. And that doesn't, and I'm saying this as someone 10 years down the line, 11 years down the line, who doesn't need to do this anymore. It really is when you have those conversations initially, and I don't want that sounded really conceited. What I want to say is, I think when you feel more confident and comfortable with explaining play therapy, child-centered play therapy in the beginning initial consultation with parents, and establishing that working relationship, going away from needing to give definitions, but really taking that time to invest in establishing a working relationship with parents, a lot of this stuff drops off. What does that sound like? The stages of child-centered play therapy. Ta-da, you're welcome. Like everything leads back to child-centered play therapy. We do the same process working with parents that we do with children. There is that warm-up stage, the initial consultation where we're getting to know the parent, they're getting to know us and suss out how we work and how we interact, and that it's very different to how other people do that. So they may have seen psychologists before, or they may have allied health engaged with them and have a different experience. We're unique and we're effective, but we're unique. So there's something different there to digest and understand. And we see that transition into the second stage of play, which is the negative testing of the negative aspects of self. So here comes that pushback, that questioning in real time. So we're not going to, as we say in the playroom, replicate relationships that exist outside of play therapy. So maybe in the past, people have been defensive, or maybe in the past, they have kind of said, oh, yep, you're absolutely right. This isn't something for your child. Yep, you should go to this person instead, and kind of given in. We see that in that dance and that dynamic of attachment relationships of children in the first 5 years of life. So here we go. I always say, you guys, I work with children of all ages. I'm sitting on the floor too, by the way, for anyone who's watching on the video. I'm on the floor because I just needed a change of scenery because, yep, that's my ADHD brain. I needed to move. And I just grabbed a stool. So if you can hear something in the background, I just need to move because it's late in the day. Okay, all of the things, all of the feels. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it because that was actually just my summary of this podcast. This is a disaster, you guys. We're going to get through this together. What I want to acknowledge, let's move on. I want to acknowledge, I guess, what's happening when parents come to us and don't understand why we don't talk to kids and why we don't ask them questions. And we need to look at the context a little bit because I think, again, it's really important. In the beginning, we're going to be really sensitive to kind of rejection, questioning, criticism, because we're already doubting ourselves, right? We're already feeling nervous and having a little bit of imposter syndrome, struggling, I guess, with your own confidence levels, especially if you're working in private practice by yourself. And so all of these things are happening in the back end before you even have this question from a parent. What I want to acknowledge is if we look at adult therapy, and I'm really talking super broad here, guys, this is not about any specific type or any specific service or provider. This is generally speaking. Most adults will equate therapy to sitting and talking to someone. That's what they've seen in movies. That's what they've seen on shows. That's what they've seen on ads. That's what they think happens in real life. Or maybe that's actually been their experience as an adult going to therapy themselves. So they expect the same for their child. What is really, really important and becomes part of our role, unfortunately, I don't know if you guys heard that in the background. That was the sound. I have to stop. Oh my God, my ADHD brain, especially at this time of day. This is a nightmare, you guys. I am not focused enough to do this. That was my shop app to say that something's being delivered to my house. Yay. Okay, getting back to it. The adult therapy assumption is very much around sitting and talking. Why does this not work for kids? Because of their language development, their brain development, and their emotional literacy. So I really want to encourage you guys to, for your beginning play therapists out there, it's really important that you have, when you're doing your initial consultation, I recommend having some dot points written down. This is what I did back in the day until I felt confident enough to make sure I covered all of the key points of child-centered play therapy in my initial consults. But it's really important to have some of those notes there to read off if you need to. If you are really in the moment and you kind of blank out and you forget, you've got those notes ready to go. We need to point out the obvious sometimes because I think, again, parents are struggling. They are in fight or flight. They are in crisis. So the first thing we're doing is helping them to regulate. I've talked so much, I guess, in this podcast around relationships first. I 100,000% believe that entirely. I think that is the cornerstone of effective practice, especially as a child-centered play therapist, is not so much the words, but how we're actually building a relationship, how we're attuning, how we're connecting, how we're authentic, how we're congruent, and how we're showing empathy, even to parents. But having some of these notes is really important as well. So children experience emotions in their bodies and their behavior first, and the words come later. So really educating parents and helping them to understand, I guess, the difference between adult therapy and child-centered play therapy. So if you're not doing that at the moment in your initial consultation, I would highly, highly recommend doing that. How I structure it at this point in my practice is it integrates into my conversations the whole way through my initial consultation. But in the first couple of years, I had a section at the end of the initial consultation where I had points on child-centered play therapy that was non-negotiable. I absolutely had to make sure that I went through all of those points and had those points there as well to remind me if I got questions from parents as well. So I highly, highly recommend that so that you can look back on that and say, I covered off on all this information. So ethically, I have discussed and disclosed the information around how child-centered play therapy works. If I'm still getting questions at the first or second ongoing parent consultation, I'm referring back to my initial consultation and the information I covered. We acknowledge that in the initial consult, it's so much information. So I'll often say, it was so much, right? And you can only retain so much in your brain. So let's just revise that again. I'm so happy to share that and answer all of your questions. Let's have a chat about what child-centered play therapy is all about. So even in the way that I just said that, I want you to notice, because I'm role-playing in real time, and I didn't prepare that in advance. What I'm doing is the tone of my voice is calm but confident. And I think, again, that might be something for beginning play therapists that may be a struggle. And I just want to normalize all of that because I know I was nervous as hell when I began my initial consultations because I was like, I've done the training, I've worked with families. But yeah, we're going to dive into this work. I'm doing PD, I'm supported by clinical supervision, I'm doing my professional practice, but still I'm nervous. So I want to normalize that. And then I want you to be prepared. What's within our circle of influence, what's within our control, having that preparation tools, having those dot points ready to go is super important. So children actually process emotions much more action orientated than adults. It's really important that we're emphasizing that point to parents. Developmentally, children do not want to sit down and talk to a therapist. They want to play it out. They want to use action, they want to use role plays, they want to use movement, they want to use symbolism, they want to use stories, and they want to use imagination. That is developmentally appropriate, and that's developmentally how children communicate. I do actually use that analogy of traditional parenting where parents are encouraged to say, use your words. Like, you seem really angry right now, and you use your words to tell me what you're thinking or feeling. And it's like, I did that too. I literally had my children the other night. They're turning 13 and 14 now. So again, you guys, I'm in the trenches of the teenage years, and I'm pretty sure I'm not coming out the other side. And just for funsies, I was seeking feedback from my teenagers and preteens about my children about, what I was like as a parent when they were younger. Because, that's always a good idea. And in doing that, my daughter let me know that one of the things that irritated her was that I used to say when she was little, use your words, use your words. So obviously before I did play therapy training. But this is the problem, right? Is that even us as therapists, we screw up too. But even more so is that traditional idea of parenting that saying that statement of use your words to talk about your feelings is pretty normal in our community. That's a lot of parents do it, but it's not developmentally appropriate. It's not recognizing developmentally that children do not know how to put words to their feelings. So it is through that action orientated play. It is through that expression that they learn how to regulate the nervous system. They learn how to navigate problems and relationships with others. They do that with us so that they can role play it and practice it, so they can take it outside of play therapy and use it with their friends. Like, this is how play therapy transfers immediately to the real world and why it's so effective. So it's very important that we recognize, especially for kids who are struggling with big feelings, that will often shut down that access to that capacity for them to be able to use words when they are in that fight or flight response. So it really is important that we're not trying to force kids to talk. And in fact, our job as therapists is to be clinically trained in how to understand play and what they're trying to tell us. It's not their job to kind of conform to us and to be able to use their words to talk to us like I used to do with my daughter. Like, for reals. I tell you what, feedback from your own kids, that hits hard. I don't know if anyone's done that. Don't do it. Don't ask your kids for feedback. But it is absolutely part of the process. And I think what's really cool is if as a parent, and I think having that lived experience and being able to lean into that for parents to say, I know how hard parenting is right now. Or for you as a practitioner, if you don't have kids yourself, being able to recognize and validate for them that parenting is hard right now. In this current climate world that we live in, like, I don't know anyone, I'm going off on a tangent again, this was going to happen. I have seen a few videos on TikTok. I'm starting on TikTok. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm 42. Oh my God, I'm 43 in April. Good Lord, you guys. That's probably not something I should share on the podcast. Anyway, I found the other day these videos about millennials, because that's me. Millennial parents. So any of you who are millennial parents, I see you, I hear you, I understand, I care. But they were talking about how like millennial parents are still waiting for somebody to tell us that we're not the grown-ups. Like we're still waiting for the grown-up to enter the room to like parent us, or like not necessarily parent us, but parent the kids, because like we're not responsible enough because we're in our mind like 25. So like parents at the moment are in this weird time of like trying to parent their kids, trying to reparent themselves if they've had a traumatic experience growing up themselves. They're trying to navigate a social world that only includes online technology at this point. This generation being the first generation of children born into technology. They don't know anything before that. Whereas us geriatric millennials remember what it was like without iPads and, the like accessible internet and all of the things, right? I'm going off on a tangent. I need to stop. But I really want to emphasize the tenets of CCPT really around that empathy to parents, because that relationship, if we can establish it with parents based on that empathy, is going to go such a long way for them to feel that validation and to feel that they have that trust in us, because that's what we do in the first stage of play therapy, right? We're building trust and we're building safety, and we're doing that with parents too. So helping them to understand that play for children is not just play. So one of the things, I'm pretty sure I've said this in another podcast, but just to say it again, I always say to parents in the initial consultation, what I see in the playroom, you would be seeing a version at home. So I'm really trying to help them to understand that this isn't unique, and it really isn't. Like we go to kindies as play therapists, so childcare centres, daycare centres, and we can literally see in real time kids playing out their world just by us being in the room with them. It happens everywhere, at the shopping centre, in the park, wherever. When kids are playing, they are playing and telling their story. So I'm always saying that it's not just play, that it's actually a way of them communicating and telling their story and making sense of their world. So children help regulate their emotions, they rehearse experiences and express things that they don't have words for through play. So again, have those notes, guys, ready and handy to explain to parents about why we're never going to get to that level of cognitive connection where we can unpack deep feelings, experiences in their formative years by talking at their cognitive conscious level. We just won't have that same success. It absolutely comes when we work in that play space, in that action-orientated space, in that unconscious space of child-centered play therapy. That's why it's so effective. So what does that mean in terms of child-centered play therapy? We see lots of role plays, lots of symbolism, lots of repetitive play, lots of big feelings that all help us to understand what the child is trying to tell us about their world. So making sure that you've got some of those points handy, guys, to make sure that you feel like you've got at least a starting point. And I think sometimes too, you could almost lean into, I guess, for parents who are, I guess, feeling, not disenfranchised, that's the wrong word, but feeling stuck or a little bit kind of unsure about child-centered play therapy, and I guess why we don't talk to kids. I would almost sometimes lean into, I guess, in exploring and understanding their experience of therapy. And I don't want to know any details. I don't want to know any of that. But I think it's more about when you've been to someone that you've really felt truly seen and heard with, what was that like? Tell me about that process. Like, was it talk-based therapy? Was it expressive therapy? And it would be interesting and surprising, I guess, for those of you out there that are kind of receiving that feedback, to unpack that with a potential parent. Because at the core, at the end of the day, what matters to both adults and children is to feel seen and heard. So when we can talk about that in the context of kids, that they need play to feel seen and heard, they're not going to feel that same way through talk-based therapies. It really is in giving them that space in their way, in their time, is going to be effective. And we know from the evidence base that that's also the case. So why are we pushing children, more importantly, to talk? And why can that backfire? If we really push kids to talk, oh gosh, I've got so many stories. I won't say it today. We really, really need to keep on track. But if we try and push, what happens when adults push for children to talk? They usually shut down, they usually mask, or they try and people please, depending on their trauma history, or they might feel like something's wrong with them. So what can talking do if we try and just talk to kids? So this is kind of the flip side, right? We've talked about why children need play in order to communicate. This is the other side. If we went down that road and we really just dedicated ourselves to a very, talk-based approach to engaging with children, you're going to see them shut down. You're going to see them mask. You're going to see the people please. You're also potentially going to see an increase in anxiety. You're going to see that override of the child's sense of safety. You're going to see children potentially present in a way that isn't true for them, that doesn't necessarily, again, get to the core of why they're in therapy or what they need support for. So we want to emphasize the importance of working at the child's pace and working in the best mode of communication for them, which is play. So play isn't about avoidance. It doesn't mean that we are avoiding therapy by doing play. It's actually the opposite. They're getting so much out of it. They're getting that experience of connection and relationship with us. They're understanding and repairing attachment styles if that's needed. They're able to unpack, experience, and understand things that they've been through. And they're able to talk, because I use that word. I often talk about how children in child-centered play therapy discuss, because that's what they're doing when they're playing. They're discussing their world. They can discuss things that they don't have words for. So there's so many benefits to why we're doing this, as opposed to trying to make them talk by asking them questions. So what does progress actually look like? Because I think this is the other thing, that you've got oftentimes parents who are stressed out, they're in fight or flight, they're needing immediate kind of results because they're also struggling themselves. And I think also too, part of it is that parents often often will wait until kind of really that crisis point before they're seeking support. And there's lots of reasons for that. So, all of that is completely understandable. But I think when that happens, those expectations of therapy then shift. And it's more about, I'm needing pretty quickly a shift and a change in order for me to see the value in this work. So I really, again, want to give you that permission as a child-centered play therapist to not necessarily take that on as anything reflective of you or your practice. It's so important that we're recognizing that this is what's coming up for this parent. This is all of their feelings, their experiences, and their expectations. And so our role as a child-centered play therapist is to educate them on child-centered play therapy, on play and the importance of play and why play therapy works. So it's important then to talk to them about celebrating those wins, because wins doesn't need to just look like behavior modification or, behavior conformity. It's absolutely the opposite of that, right? Where we want them to help develop their emotional regulation skills. We want them to be able to widen their window of tolerance, to be able to have fewer meltdowns or a shorter recovery time. We want them to feel a sense of confidence in themselves, increase their self-esteem, self-worth, increase their capacity to connect, and see those changes in play themes that shows us that they're moving through the stages. So there's so much good work that we can talk to them about that has nothing to do with asking them questions or talking to them directly. So we always seek to explore changes across the child's life. So we're looking at home, we're looking at school, we're looking at play therapy, we're looking at extracurricular activities, we're looking at peer relationships, we're looking at family relationships. So many different parts of the child that we can unpack and explore to really be able to measure that growth and change, which is, again, why it's so important that we're meeting with parents and caregivers every, 5 or 6 weeks, every 5 or 6 sessions, because sometimes they can be fortnightly. But having those regular communications and catch-ups is super important. If we're struggling to do that, if we're struggling to engage with the parent, it really is important to connect with them to say, look, this is a process where I work holistically. It's so important that we work together. So let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think it's really important to have those authentic, congruent, but still empathetic conversations to parents to help them to feel that they are seen and heard, but also for you as a therapist to be able to hold some of those boundaries and expectations in terms of the process of child-centered play therapy. So wrapping up this topic, and then I'm going to kind of finish off, but just to kind of summarize, we want to give that reassurance to parents and caregivers because we know they're in the trenches and it is hard going and it's not an easy job. It's obviously, oftentimes the best, depending on the individual. Certainly many would say that it is one of the best jobs we'll ever have. It is a hard job though. And so I really want to acknowledge and recognize that if your child is not talking to me, that's totally fine. I actually don't need them to talk. That I have that understanding, I have that experience, I have that training and professional membership and qualifications and ethical practice around understanding how children talk using play. So I don't need them to talk. So it doesn't mean that because they don't want to talk that they're resistant either. And really it gets me thinking about if I have parents that are kind of saying to me that, Johnny, has gone home and he doesn't understand why we don't talk in play therapy together, and maybe has asked mum, do I need to talk in therapy? Or more likely, parents are asking questions about what did you talk about, to Kylie today? What did you guys chat about? What did you say? What did she say? All of those kinds of questions, right? And that sometimes happens. Again, I'm almost immediately kind of reflecting on the fact that if you have a parent that's doing any of that, it most likely is because they are struggling and they are stressed and they're really hoping that because they're obviously struggling with their tools in their toolkit that we've maybe covered some of that work in the session. And certainly, again, may have been an expectation that they had. So it's really important that we're recognizing and chatting with the parents around what's appropriate in that space. It's really important that we're not asking kids after therapy how therapy went or what they did or what they covered, because very often play is unconscious. They don't have the words to put to that anyway. So if I have a parent that's sort of saying, well, Johnny doesn't understand why you're not talking in therapy, my first curiosity is it's probably Johnny didn't necessarily ask that, although maybe they did, because of community expectations and community understandings around how therapy works. And so it's an invitation for me to help share why children actually don't talk in therapy and they don't want to. And in fact, that Johnny has been talking in other ways. Johnny's been using play, and I've had the opportunity to be able to do some of those assessments around themes and stages of play. So it's really reframing it to help parents to understand that it's absolutely not essential, but in fact, it's a sign of really oftentimes moving into the second stage of play therapy when kids refuse to talk. And often too, it's about, children's understanding of relationships with others. So maybe they've been to other therapists where they have talked. Maybe they understand that in relationships with others, you don't necessarily show emotions, but you do it through talking. Maybe the child feels it's their responsibility to take care of the therapist and to talk in therapy, and so they don't understand why we aren't, because, potentially from a trauma background as well. There's lots and lots of reasons why children in their formative years understand that talking to an adult is required. And so you're helping children unlearn that and be able to have a space where they can do what they innately want to do, biologically, neurobiologically, but also developmentally. They want to play. They want to actually do that play-based work as opposed to talking about their feelings to someone. So when we give them that space, it's an adjustment for the child as much as it is for the parent. And it really does take courage from the parent to sit in that uncomfortable, the same way it takes courage for children to sit in that uncomfortable when they're sitting there waiting for you to ask them questions and you're not. Where it gives us that opportunity to be able to say to the child, this is somewhere really different. And this is something that isn't necessarily what you usually expect or you usually experience. But in here, you're able to do and say what you need to do in your way, in your time. And I'm here when you're ready. Like really giving that validity to children to acknowledge and recognize their uncomfortability, because we're going to do that. We're going to let them know we understand it's uncomfortable. This isn't what is your normal experience with other adults. But it's actually really important that we are acknowledging that it's uncomfortable, but we also deeply, deeply have an abiding belief in their capacity for growth if given the environment to do so. That is our core belief in child-centered play therapy. So I truly believe that if given enough time and that repetition of experience, that they will shift. I absolutely know it, that they won't be relying or feeling like they need to talk. They will feel that sense of confidence and trust and safety in me, and they'll start unpacking through play. So it really is more of, say, a transition for kind of beginning play therapists and beginning children in therapy, where they're just trying to navigate and understand how play therapy works. And, you know, that community expectation, I guess, of adult therapy trickling down to parents' understanding of child therapy, which it isn't. It really, truly isn't. We need to be able to give kids a space to play, to be able to process and work through. It really is about trusting the process too. And I think that that's hard for parents and beginning play therapists as well. So we really want them, and we want to encourage parents to ask us about the process so we can explain to them themes and stages of play and focus on the changes and not necessarily any talking that happens. We want to really recognize the growth and the shift and the change, because that's why they've brought us to therapy, or brought the child to therapy, right? To engage us. They want to see that growth and change. And so it's not just in talking to a child and giving them strategies. It needs to be in that play-based space. This has been a bit of an episode, you guys. I feel like I've talked myself through this topic very strongly. I've just noticed my tone at the end. I'm not normally like that. I think I want to reflect in real time with you guys that I really want to normalize for anyone out there who is a beginning play therapist, who is really feeling that pressure to talk to kids. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. That's my Minions text message. You probably can't. I think actually you guys normally can't hear the background music. Yeah, my text message, which is the Minion saying, oh, hello, is needed because I need that to distract myself and hear my texts. Otherwise, I'd just ignore them because ADHD brain. So apologies. That was my text message, probably from my family going, where are you? Where are you? Great. So in summary, I just want to, yes, I was talking about beginning play therapists feeling that sense of doubt. I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's so much about what's happening in the family system as opposed to anything that's happening as your delivery as a child-centered play therapist. And when I say trust the process, you guys, I truly, truly mean it. And I say that as somebody 11 years down the line that can reflect on so many incredible moments of success with kids, that I want you to know, as much as I say to parents, I've got you, like I see you, I understand, and I care, and that this modality and intervention with children works. We have the evidence-based, but we have the anecdotal as well, that this is an approach that is effective with kids. And so it's so much about building your confidence, building your list of dot points of what you want to convey and tell to parents to reassure them, because it's not about convincing them, because we know that child-centered play therapy works, but it's more around reassuring them, and then really focusing on that relationship and connection work, really building up your confidence by connecting with, working with, having that open communication and dialogue with parents to support them along the way, because it's as much a journey for them as it is for us as a play therapist, as much as it is for the child. So what's my key takeaway? Children don't need to talk about their problems to heal. Whoa. Children don't need to talk about their problems to heal. And we want to give them reassurance to parents that, again, all of their concerns are normal, but an open reflective question here to everyone listening: what if play is your child's language? If we were to pose that question to parents, what if play is your child's language? I mean, we know it is, right? Gary Lindros tells us it is. And we know as well from our practice. But I guess I hope in giving all of that information to you that it has, I guess, given some information to share you guys, and just planting the seed and helping to give some extra tools in your toolkit to navigate when working with parents who are really on the fence, I guess, about child-centered play therapy, or really questioning why we don't talk to kids. Hey, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. As I said, I'm getting text message from my family saying, where are you? And make sure you get dog food. That is on my to-do list. So I'm literally leaving here to go and get dog food. That's the information that you didn't ask for in this podcast, but there you go. Thank you so much to everyone who celebrated our birthday week this week. Yay! There was pink cake and everything and pink balloons. Yay. So we're back to normal programming next week. No more birthday. But we have all of the conference info to share over the next coming months as we move towards October and our conference in Brisbane. We're so excited. But I really just want to thank you guys for supporting the podcast. I can't believe we have listeners in 40 countries, you guys. It is wild. So thank you so much. Please follow us along on Instagram and TikTok. We are on Instagram at the Play Therapy Circle Podcast, and also on TikTok, Play Therapy Circle Podcast. I forget to post on TikTok. I'm really going to be real with you, so I need to get better at that. We will post information as we go. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your good podcasts as well. Check us out on YouTube. We're on YouTube now too. So thank you so much for your support. I have hopefully a pretty quiet weekend coming up. We're going to recharge the batteries for another big week next week. I am so grateful to be here in the playroom and to get to connect with all of you and share my child-centered play therapy passion. So thank you so much for being here. Look after yourselves and each other. Go well, and I will see you next week. Bye.